Loyalty still means something in this country. Walter Jennings was 72 years old, a lifelong farmer holding on to the last breath of his family's legacy. For over 5 decades, he had worked the same 1,000 acres of Midwestern soil that his father and grandfather had cultivated before him. Unlike the sprawling corporate farms that used machines and metrics to dominate the region, Jennings' farm was a labor of love, built on heritage, sweat, and something Walter often called quiet duty. For 30 years, one portion of his land south field served a purpose far greater than crops. It was a designated military landing zone, a crucial training ground for helicopter pilots from the air base over 2 states away. Walter maintained it just as his father had during Vietnam. When young aviators needed practice under moonlight, Walter would stay up late to set the portable landing lights, guide them in with precision, and relay coordinates with a calm, seasoned voice. Meanwhile, his wife, Eliza, would prepare pots of hot coffee and sandwiches for the flight crews who often trained well into the night. "You can't expect our boys to train on empty stomachs," she'd say, placing baskets on the folding tables near the field's edge. The military never officially owned the land. It was a handshake deal, an old-fashioned, patriotic understanding between a farming family and the nation they served. There was never any contract, never any demands, just loyalty. But times changed. When Silicon Horizon, a tech conglomerate from California, purchased the surrounding farmland last year, everything began to unravel. The new owners didn't care about long-standing handshakes or history. They saw only opportunity prime, flat land perfect for a new innovation campus. Jennings Farm sat right in the middle of their master plan. "We're offering you well above market value," the representatives told Walter with rehearsed smiles and hollow reassurances. "It's a generous deal, but no offer could replace 5 generations of purpose." Walter didn't see acreage. He saw the footprints of young servicemen training under starlit skies. He saw his father during the Cold War, oiling old lanterns so pilots could land safely. He saw Eliza waving from the porch at every passing Blackhawk. To Walter, the land wasn't dirt, it was devotion. And now, a formal eviction notice lay on his kitchen table. 50 years of patriotic service were being erased not by war, not by nature, but by ink and zoning codes. One by one, the neighboring properties folded. The Montgomery place next door, once a rest area for crews, was under contract. The Wilson family down the road had sold their 200 acres, a vital emergency landing zone, to build luxury apartments. Every night, Walter would sit across from Eliza at their wooden table, eyes red from dust and grief. "I don't understand it," he whispered one evening. "We've been helping train pilots for 50 years. How can they just erase all that?" Eliza squeezed his hand, her eyes watery but composed. "Maybe the right people just haven't seen what you've done yet." The next morning, with hands stiff from age and sorrow, Walter planted a handmade sign at the edge of Southfield. It read, "Notice, military training zone closing. Jennings Farm serving our forces since 1943. Below it, in smaller handwriting, thank you for 50 years of service to our country." Walter didn't call the military. He didn't want to seem bitter or beg for attention. He just kept doing what he'd always done, maintaining the field, setting the lights, checking the coordinates. But something in him had changed. The proud set of his shoulders was sagging. His radio voice, once crisp and confident, cracked when speaking pilots. Then one afternoon, a young local journalist named Carla Briggs drove by and saw the sign. She stopped, took a few photos, and knocked on the farmhouse door. Over tea and cinnamon rolls, Walter told her everything from his grandfather's World War II land offering to Eliza's wartime hospitality. Carla published the piece in the Sunday paper. She didn't expect it to go viral, but the story touched a nerve. Within days, the article was circulating in military forums, online aviation groups, and veteran organizations. Former pilots who had trained at Jennings Farm shared photos, videos, memories. "Jennings Field saved my career. First night landing I ever did was with Mr. Jennings guiding us in." One caption simply read, 5 decades of service erased in silence. Not on our watch. Walter was inside the barn the following evening, oiling a broken gate hinge when a landline rang. His daughter had begged him to get a cell phone, but Walter had always refused. "The old one still works," he would say. "Mr. Jennings," the voice said with a clipped tone. "Please hold for General McAllister, chairman of the Joint Chiefs." Walter nearly dropped the phone. At first, he thought it was a prank, but a few seconds later, a calm and commanding voice came through. "Mr. Jennings, I read the story about your farm. I need to hear it from you." For 20 minutes, Walter spoke. No grandstanding, no political speeches, just service. He talked about the cold nights, guiding helicopters, about helping young aviators become leaders. He talked about oiling the same marker lanterns his father once lit, and watching Eliza wave every time a chopper rose over the ridge. When he finished, there was a pause. "Mr. Jennings," General McAllister said softly, "we can't lose places like yours. Give me 24 hours. Walter hung up with trembling hands and called out, "Eliza, you won't believe what just happened." The next morning, as Walter completed his chores, the low thrum of rotors rolled over the treetops. An Apache helicopter appeared, followed by 3 Blackhawks. They landed neatly on South Field, just as they had 1,000 times before. But this time, the markings were different. These were Pentagon aircraft. 2 generals stepped down and approached the porch, each carrying briefcases and official papers. "Mr. Jennings," one said, flashing his credentials, "we're here to ensure this land continues its service to the United States military." They sat around the kitchen table while Eliza served fresh coffee. For the next hour, they laid out plans. The field would be designated as a protected military training facility, untouchable by commercial development. The Department of Defense would lease the landing zones from the Jennings family, providing them with a stable income while preserving the essential training site. "This," one of the generals said, pointing to the signature line, "guarantees your land's legacy forever." Walter's hand shook as he signed. After months of heartbreak and dread, hope returned to Jennings' farm. Before leaving, the general turned and said, "The chairman asked us to tell you something. He said to remind you that some things are worth more than money. Your loyalty is one of them." Later that day, Pentagon officials paid a visit to Silicon Horizon's local office. The moment the military entourage entered, the mood shifted. Gone were the confident speeches about investment returns and development timelines. "Our plans," one executive began, "are being overridden," the general said firmly, "by national security orders." The developers went pale. Within hours, zoning restrictions were redefined. Jennings' farm was no longer in jeopardy, nor were the others. The Montgomery place remained a designated rest area. The Wilson property was reclassified as an emergency zone. Across the county, the dominoes reversed. What had seemed like a slow defeat turned into a patriotic stand. Today, Jennings' farm still operates. Walter continues to maintain the landing zones, though now his grandson, Luke, joins him every morning. Luke sets the lights and reads the weather like Walter once did. The schedule is fuller than ever, with more units requesting practice runs under real field conditions. And Eliza? She still brews that same strong coffee and packs those same sandwiches every time a training group arrives. The old sign now hangs inside the barn, next to an American flag and a framed letter from the chairman himself. When asked about that miraculous day, Walter simply smiles. He'd rather show you the new marker system or let you watch the Blackhawks perform maneuvers at sunset. Because to Walter Jennings, this was never about land. It was about legacy. And in a world rushing toward change, his story reminds us all. Loyalty still means something in this country.